Appreciate it. This was interesting because I came here as the second thing when you guys had your shindig down at the brewery. Before that was just the Tenino public school hearing, right? And I didn't know really much of anything about this. I was in the state legislature, and this became its own rabbit hole. So I'm going to have Kathy, Sylvia, and Rachel come up. One thing that you should probably know is that I wish that this had almost been done tomorrow, because they actually, in the House, it's 1361? 1390, they passed out of the House with 55 votes, which will end community protection plans. So if it gets to the Senate and it gets voted through, then it only goes to the governor, and then we don't have any observation of any of these folks at all, as well as maybe well, that's great, but we don't, because they will not allow you to see it on any kind of computer or anything else. So that being said, that's how that will be framed, and so I would registration will go. All of it will go. So what I would tell you is that because I worked 3 years in the legislature, do not email, do not Facebook. That does not do anything. Phone call. Phone call ties up people. Phone call actually makes them have to go, oh, wow. If you want to look at some of the things that actually got beat back even this session, it was phone calls. Am I wrong, Kathy?
And that would be correct.
Yeah. Okay, well, we'll share. By the way, Kathy believed in me enough to talk to me when a lot of people weren't. So,
anyway, that Troy Kirby is the producer of the film. So thank you, Troy. I'm Kathy Dahlquist. For those of you who I don't know, I was in this film, former legislator that represented this district. And I'm retired and got my kids here, and just care about this community and care about the people of this community. So really, I did not work on sex predator issues when I served in the legislature. I was all about education and energy, and stumbled into this because of the Enumclaw placement. I think it's important to allow you all opportunities to ask questions. There are a couple other people here I would like to introduce. Rachel Grayless. She is from Tenino and a huge advocate, and I could not have done so much of the work without her help. She is a researcher extraordinaire, and her mother here, Paula, is here to interpret for her. So we've become great friends. So, and then I'll let you introduce Sylvia.
So this is Sylvia Peterson. Her husband was the chaplain for a number of years, and then you've actually spent enough time.
And I spent 9 years interviewing Laura McCollum out at McNeil, and I started that process because I'm an incest survivor, and I wanted to know, how do people get that sick? And I thought, I'm sure I am smarter than she is, and I'll break her down and she'll tell me, and in a few months I won't have to ever go back to that horrible place again. And it took 9 months. Laura McCollum was tough.
The one thing that I'll tell you is the reason that it's good to see all of the different examples, Polsbo, Enumclaw, Tenino, is because they try to paint, especially like with Kathy, right? Oh, it's just one person that's doing this and they're just causing all the trouble. And it's not showing the pattern that these groups have caused to ensure that you are isolated, that you are not necessarily, believed, I guess what I would say. I mean, if you see the Tricia, who is in Polsbo, that by itself does not look, maybe the DSA just didn't have any answers, but you see the pattern that they are willing to go with to ensure that you look like you're the only person that's really complaining and everybody else isn't. Kathy, what was your experience through this?
Through what?
Through this entire ordeal.
Oh, well, I mean, I just, there's so many other people out here that deserve so much more than I deserve. The Van Dams are here, the neighbors of the house on 188th. They were instrumental in making sure that information was quickly relayed and helped with research. And so thank you to Pear and Deb and your whole family. It's not really about me, it's really about you guys and keeping our kids safe. So if you have questions, I think it's important for you to have the opportunity, because I know when we were all at Wabash, if you were there, it drove me absolutely out of my mind that we weren't allowed to ask questions until I finally just stopped everybody and said, we're done with this death by PowerPoint, we're going to ask questions. So please just raise your hand, we'll acknowledge you and try to answer as best as we can. Yes?
Is there steps that could be taken now that all this research, that was an amazing job? If I was an attorney, I'd be like, if I was, you'd be my first point of contact to break this all down. But I'm wondering, it's obvious that there's state laws that have been broken. There's legislation laws that are federal that have been broken. Has anybody tried to take this to state and supersede it onto a Supreme Court level yet? That point out that these laws that already exist have been broken?
Really good question. Thank you for that. Did everyone hear her? Okay. So the question was, has anybody tried to sue the state over the placement into a less restrictive alternative? So the thing that you need to know, and Rachel would be a good one to talk about some of the details, but and I'm going to give her the opportunity to speak to the details of the Supreme Court case that requires that folks have a path to a less restrictive alternative. I'm going to give you that piece because you're so good with that. But I am going to talk specifically about, and you saw Jack Connolly is the attorney that we in Enumclaw hired to help us sue the state if they were going to continue to proceed. What happened was, and how Stephen Knapp got moved out of the house, and you heard parts of that, is he had some violations. He ended up fashioning a weapon, which got him sent back to McNeil Island. So anyway, there was a series of violations prior to him being moved back. But there was a group of us, Jessica McCoy, Storton, who is also here, who has been a huge advocate here in Enumclaw. Thank you, Jessica. I see her. But anyway, so Jessica and Herr Van Dam and I all testified up at the court. He had a hearing to be placed back into the garden house in Enumclaw, and we convinced the judge with a lot of letters and a lot of phone calls to that judge. Like within a 24-hour period, we heard about the hearing because we weren't given notice. And I happened to know someone in the prosecuting attorney's office and found out that he was up for a hearing. So we ran up to Seattle and testified and convinced the judge that it was not a suitable location for any sexually violent predator to be placed in. And that's basically how we got the placement down.
And the key to that also was they would not allow it to be live streamed, but they'd allow everybody else to be inter-networked except for you.
Yes, so just so you understand what Troy is saying, is that we physically had to be there in the courtroom. All of the sex offender treatment providers, DSHS, Stephen Knapp, all got to be via Zoom. We actually physically had to be there. So I'm going to let Rachel talk about the answer to the other piece of the question of what the legal constitutional requirements are for sexually violent predators and why there are LRAs.
So there are two pieces to the constitutional question. In order to pass the constitutional test of having a civil commitment program, it cannot be considered a program of incarceration. It has to be a program of therapy or treatment, and there has to be a pathway to unconditional release. Now, we know, and they've acknowledged to DSHS that some of these men will probably die in the program, because at some point they will never reach that point where they're going to be safe for release. They essentially told us at the final meeting, well, once they hit 60, they're really not all that interested in sexually offending. And I knew that absolutely not the case. We still have a lot of people who've been in the system who are in their 70s even right now. So the piece about the law and what laws are broken what's really interesting is when you get down to the nitty-gritty of the RCW of community notification, it says that the sheriff's office has to be notified. The sheriff's office then has just a determination of their own of how to make that notification to the community. Some of them simply just rely on the WASOR, the Washington Sex Offender Registry website, and it's up to you to go and check on it and click on it and enter your address every day to see if somebody new has moved in within a certain perimeter of your home. So that, I don't consider that to be a community notification at all. I believe something needs to be more put out into the community so that you are fully aware at that point. Not on you to have to go and just check a list and see who's new on that. There's no easy way to do it. So that was something that really surprised me about the community notification requirement. It really is up to every single county. And you guys in King County have an appointed sheriff. I'm really sorry. I had Sheriff Sanders up here who was talking about how, the government required to do this. To an extent, yes, the government is required to consider pathways for people that it is appropriate for them. That's the big distinction, right? Are they appropriate for release? And in many cases, they absolutely are not. So that's kind of the legal background of some of that. Yes, we're required, we're kind of stuck in this. But are we handling it well? It's not balanced. Clearly, it's not balanced. So just 1 month ago today, U.S. Marshals put out a press release, Paulsville. They just picked up Rick Monroe, who had been on the loose for an under the radar. They had no idea where he went. He was an SVP who was unconditionally released. He was still required to register. He tried to leave the country and the state multiple times. And when he wasn't able to do so, he just stopped registering and he just parked his boat and stayed in his boat for a year. This is someone who has an extensive criminal history against children. He couldn't bathe his own children because all he could think about was raping his own daughters. And so these are difficult when you're reading through this story. These things you can't unknow. But we have to figure out a way to balance this. We have to do it. We have to do it for our kids, for our family. And I am so honored to be here tonight with the Enumclaw because you guys are fierce. Just what a great job you guys have done standing up for your community, for your loved ones. And I just want to thank you for standing with Tenino in the same way.
So I have a question. Did I understand you to say that there is a belief out there that people over the age of 70 no longer think about sex?
I'm sure the older.
Yeah? Really?
Up to over 60, they're very low. They don't think about it.
They don't? Okay.
That's a little older thing.
Okay, I'll go home and tell all my friends. Thank you.
One of the things I should mention, and this is why I brought in the SOSA program, which is Talk and Walk, is how insidious this is, that a lot of these guys are getting away with this. A lot of them aren't even being registered on, really this pathway. Kyle Sheed, who's mentioned in this, he would have been off after 2 years, which is 2004. He got off in 2021 because he kept reoffending. He kept doing the thing. But because it is a psychologist boon, because they get paid by the state, they have it. So after, the community protection program, I know that SOSA will be the next one they go after. And SOSA is insidious of its own self because it really does not allow people to get flagged for what they should be kind of monitored for. And if you look at Mr. Knapp, turned out to be a SOSA candidate from the beginning.
Next question. Yes.
Does the garden house close then? Is there still people there?
Yes, actually the owners of the house, Rick Minnick and Jill Rockwell, are living in the house. So you saw the piece where the loan got called and they owed $630,000 on that loan. It got called, so they sold 2 homes in Tacoma and they currently live in the garden house. So we kind of expected that after they met the 2-year capital gains minimum that they would be selling, but they haven't sold it yet.
So is there a new house anywhere?
Not that we know of yet.
Okay.
Doesn't mean that the garden house could eventually be converted back, but their contract got pulled because, as you saw in the film, Rick Minnick was also a polygraph examiner at the Special Commitment Center, and the Attorney General's office kind of, determined that there was a conflict of interest, so he couldn't have done a polygraph. What they ended up determining, a polygraph within, I think, 6 months of a placement of one of the sexually violent predators into the house he owned. So he realized that was going to be difficult because he had done thousands of polygraphs on probably most all the residents on the island.
Is he in jail now?
Who? Stephen Knapp? No, he went back to the Special Commitment Center. He was on McNeil Island for a period of time, and now he's living on 31st Street in Tacoma. That's where he originally was supposed to be placed before Rick Minnick told him about the house he owned here in Enumclaw when he was doing a polygraph exam on him. So, yes, back here.
Is Minnick still doing the polygraph for McNeil?
Yes, so he did relinquish his contract initially once he got the ruling from the Attorney General's office when Stephen Knapp was still there. So there was a few months where he wasn't doing polygraphs for sexually violent predators that were there. And then when Knapp got taken out, then he got the contract back. So, yeah, he's there again. Anyone else? Oh, here.
Is he the same person who's been in trouble through lots of histories in King County for polygraph testing and having charges brought up against them?
I don't know the answer to that. I don't know. Yes.
Do you have a list of the numbers that we should call them to find out about keeping the registry?
I can get it. I can post it on the Save Our Children Facebook page. Be happy to do that. Yes.
The idea in the film of the LRAs being put on McNeil Island, is that something that is being considered?
That's a really good question also, and it's a question. If it's an LRA that's on McNeil Island, there's actually 2 LRAs that are called SCTFs, Secured Community Transition Facilities. There's the one in Pierce County, which is McNeil Island, and it houses 24. It has how many beds? 24 beds. At the SCTF that's on McNeil, which is separate than the actual more maximum security at the SCC. And then there's one in King County that has how many beds? We talked about this. How many?
I'm sorry.
Okay, that's all right.
So the one in King County, I will say, that's the one Joseph McKee was at by himself. It had a 10,000-pound magnetic door. It had cops. It had all of these things. He was there by himself, the most modern man in the state. And then at one day, they just plopped him into the town, not the prison, of Walla Walla, and freaked out everybody. And he reoffended a few times, went back, and then whatever. But it's been a cyclical thing. And he flies under the radar, but I would never trust that guy.
So there's been some questions of the constitutionality of McNeil Island, being that if it's less restrictive, how is it less restricted if they're on an island and can't get off? And of course, that's something that we would support, is the building and securing of more SCTFs, because all of those are highly secure. There's staff on site. They're monitored 24/7. The home here in Enumclaw, as probably most of you know, had no staff. He was living there by himself. So there was cameras inside the house where apparently, I guess they were watching him.
So how many beds at McNeil Island?
At the SCTF side of it, so the LRA piece of it, there's 24. But on the maximum security portion, there are additional beds, and I don't know the answer to that. Okay, but in the entire McNeil Island, how many does that house? Do you know?
Well, there's shut down a couple of This had up to 200.
They have
Filled beds.
filled beds, yeah. We know there's a little bit, close to 200 sexually violent predators that are either at the SCC or in one of those SCTFs or in an LRA someplace in some community somewhere in the state.
So the 2 secure community transition facilities are the only areas that the state DSHS provides an accounting to the legislature about conditions of violation of release. So I asked for the public records request and said, hey, can you please give us numbers? All I wanted was data. I just wanted to look at numbers to see whether or not Washington State's SVP catch and release program is safe or effective. So I said, where's the numbers? How many are they violating when they get out there? Because they have patterns. Well, they start with being sneaky, being untruthful, being places they shouldn't be, being deceptive, which are all things that Stephen F. did in Enumclaw repeatedly from the get-go, but we weren't informed about it until much later when we started getting the public request. But when I asked for these conditions of release violations, they said, oh, we don't track those aggregately. I said, why not?
They stopped after 2012.
What? They don't want to know. If you don't track it.
Oh, they didn't even have a fully aggregate tracking because we have the Attorney General's office. That's the 38 counties. They represent us, the 38 counties, but King County has their own SVP unit. They don't necessarily always talk to each other and combine with the courts. And so when I say, for the whole state, tell me this number, they go, you got to go talk to them. And actually what just recently happened was the Attorney General's office said, we asked them not to send us these reports any longer, so we don't have them to give to you. And I was absolutely thrilled. So I'm a 30-year state employee. I know that numbers are absolutely everything. And the most important metric for whether or not the program is safe or effective is how many violations we're continuing to have in any kind of secure or controlled release. And if they continue to violate with them, they're going to continue to violate the community when they have no supervision, right? Is that the assumption that we're going to have? And so what happened was in 2022, the number of violations that they had at the SCTS, so remember, these are razor wire, these are locks and keys, they don't go anywhere without a chaperone. So in 2022, they had 24% of the people that were residents there violated the conditions of release. 24%. And think about that in our community. The person that lives next door to you, they have a 24% chance of violating. The next year, that number rose to 35%. That is a 10% increase. We're not getting better here, folks. I don't understand why we don't have some sort of analysis for this. We know in state government that we love to spend money on doing an analysis, doing analysis stuff. We pay for it. We pay for the report. We don't do that for this program. We're too scared to. They want plausible deniability, and they kept saying again and again, we have no convictions of a hands-on reoffense by an SVP. And what we found was some of these SVPs had gone on to later kill people. And they said, oh, but they were unconditionally released. They were no longer an SVP. Doesn't that make you feel better? That they determined it's okay to release people unconditionally. And yet we have Rick Monroe, that we just picked up after a year, sitting in a boat. And actually within view of what you saw up here, the Viking Way, Paulsbo, LLA, that Tricia was just describing. So the SCTF, we need more. I would rather have them behind razor wire with Department of Corrections and DSHS staff, because then you remove the financial incentive for them not to report when we got violations, right? Because then, at that point, they would just say, okay, we got to fix it. But we're not doing that. We're actually being encouraged not to report things at this point because we privatize this and turn it into a business. That's dangerous.
Right back here.
I don't understand what you were trying to tell us about the bill that's been passed or about to be passed tomorrow, how that's going to affect this whole thing.
She doesn't understand the bill that you're talking about. The community protection.
Okay, the Community Protection Act is the bill or the law that we live under, that they go into McNeil Island and they are registered and everything else, right? It's the landmark legislation. They are unwinding that. So the House just voted to repeal that. So now it will go to the Senate, and if they repeal it, then it will go to the governor's office, and then it will be no more. So that is what it is. The one thing I will say is scoring is BS. I hope you kind of figured that out.
Yeah.
That the scoring is whack-a-mole. Even the people that got really upset at Woolard, Helmus, who's the lady that was the first one about, some of his stuff shouldn't be used. When I called her up, because I called these people to ask them, hey, you're at Simon Fraser, great, this would be great. She was like, well, that happened 10 years ago. That happened 15 years ago. And I'm like, that's great, but those people got let out. And his testimony helped 50 people, on certain things. And the problem with, and I work in academia, so I know it, if there's ever a group that ever thinks really highly of their worth and not really much of anybody who doesn't have a PhD because you haven't ascended from God, that's that problem. So they really don't want to also question each other, because if they question each other too much, and the one that said it was mumbo jumbo, Amy Phoenix, would only talk to me off the record, but she told me where I could find the thing in the Seattle Times where she had said it. And then she had gotten criticized by her fellow academics for saying that. So it is what it is, but interesting little rabbit hole. Any other questions?
So just to tie that up, Matt, you asked that question, that yes, we would love to have more SCTFs on and expand on McNeil Island. That would be a great goal, but we're not sure that it's constitutionally sound. Yes.
So I had a question, and then one other thing I wanted to say is, one, is there a way that we could actually stop the bill? And if so, can all this information of phone numbers and who we contact, and about the asking for the different data to be reported that she has such wonderful information. So we have that, and the phone numbers to be shared on the page that you're talking about.
Yes. If you're not a member of Save Our Children Enumclaw, please go on there. There's like 3 questions you have to answer, because we did have some trolls coming to the page. So just 3 questions you have to answer. And if you just want to note that you were here this evening, that would be great, so we can approve your and approve your membership quickly. And then we will post something on the page with all that information. So thank you for that.
And the other thing that I wanted to say is, I keep forgetting the abbreviations, but the thing that often, it wasn't really appeared this way, but when you go in for being a sex offender, right, for trial, and the prosecutor offers you options, and the walk and talk option, the SS, what is it called?
SOSA.
Do you guys actually know that? I've actually heard of people who've had families that have had sex offenders. I don't think people want to know the details, but do you guys actually know what that program actually is, and how actually disturbingly disgusting and non-workable they're actually talking about, actually in therapy, and having to record themselves about what actually gets them off? Is that something commonly most people know, that that's what the program is? It's not a productive, actual helpful program. It's actually re-stimulating them to continue to offend. Is that common knowledge, or just something that most people don't?
I think most people probably have no idea what SOSA even
disturbing.
was. So I think most people, I didn't know what it was, and I, in the legislature, I had no idea what SOSA was until I was out and into this
I would
issue.
never know what it was. I was just yeah.
So, and just to kind of piggyback onto that, most sex offenders have already pled down the charges so many times, and the number of victims and their crimes, that it's absolutely disgusting. So by the time they even get to trial, most children, it's very, very hard to get their testimony, and a lot of families don't want their children to have to go through that again. And I guess I'm compassionate towards that, but how do we put these guys away if we don't have folks to be able to testify against them?
I think we need a different alternative to SOSA, because sometimes when somebody's trying to get somebody, a prosecutor's trying to get somebody to plea bargain or even admit that they're guilty, they have to have another chip on the table, hey, we'll give you this lesser sentence. And I think, we need a different idea besides this. That's my personal opinion.
Thank you. Anyone else?
So if you've ever attended a sex offender policy board meeting, if you haven't, you're in for a treat. But it's very, very difficult to hear. These are very sometimes callous statements to come out of them. They talk about SOSAs a lot. They just went through an entire reevaluation of the sentencing matrix for sex offender crime. And those included a lot of the SOSA stuff. They talk about points. They talk about, changing things from Class A to Class B, things like that. And one of the things that blew me away was the director, or the chairman of the Sex Offender Policy Board, is a man named Brad Merrihew, and he is defense attorney for sex offenders. So I don't know how you wouldn't have a dog in that fight and be able to be a voting board member or something like this. But we talk about SOSA a lot. And it kind of blew me away that the cows disregard the victims in those particular cases. That was very, very difficult to listen to. Some of these cases were custodial sex misconduct. We're talking about foster parents doing things to children, we're talking about coaches and teachers. And it was amazing that the discussions they were having, they were talking about reducing the minimum sentences in half in some cases. It blew me away. I don't know if you've been able to see any things that were happening in some of these meetings, but I believe it was July of 2023, kind of in the thick of all of this. Thurston County Prosecutor General's office called in, and they were only given the 60 to 90 seconds to talk, like the rest of the public was. And they said, hey, did you get our letter? We sent a formal letter to you. This is what we're asking for. We're asking for legal standing any time any court is thinking about putting someone in our county. Which is a fantastic idea. We should do that. Traffic Couture tried to do that. That went nowhere in this particular session. That went absolutely nowhere. So where do we go from here? What are we still doing? I can tell you that I speak with this woman on pretty much a daily basis. She's up at all hours, and we just burn up the line with new ideas, trying anything, trying to figure out how to keep people informed, how to get people engaged. I'm so glad to see you guys here tonight, this late, on school night. You know, I got a kid that I gotta get back home to. Thank you for being here. I want you guys, if you can, please stay engaged in the legislation that's happening. Right now, we've already crossed a deadline. It's too late on some of these things. But it's not that tennis shoe brigade. What happens when people when they rise up, when they bring attention to the matter, and you know that the very last thing that legislators want is bad press, right? They don't want to be seen as a pedophile protective, right? So what can we do to get more people involved, to get you guys to continue to stay involved? We tried to focus on the page. What was the last sex offender policy board meeting about? What can we do? We put links about how to contact the legislators. I would just advocate for you to continue to stay in touch with this, see what's happening with that. We're continuing to work the problem. We have not stopped. We haven't stopped at all. We continue to move forward as if this is a continuing threat in both of our communities.
So I just want to wrap this up and first of all say thank you so much to Charles for allowing us to share this film history tonight. So thank you so very much. Anyway, Troy, thanks.
Thank you. I do appreciate Kathy for all of her work because it does take a lot to actually want to be in front of camera. Right? Like, and want to provide stuff and want to help and all that. I know, but it does matter. So I do appreciate that. What a loony bin. So, anyway, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you.